We've gathered here at a store called Locavore, which is in Glasgow. What's the neighborhood?
Govanhill.
Govanhill. It's a cool store, and the coolest thing about it is that it is the home and host of Tell It Slant books, which is a bookstore. Yes, a bookstore that's named after Emily Dickinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the origin of that?
So the origin of that was actually one of the previous stewards of Tell It Slant books was Catherine Sowerby. She came up with the name during its foundational process from the famous Emily Dickinson poem, Tell All the Truth But Tell It Slant.
Yeah, well, since you are yourself now the onlyest begetter of Tell It Slant books, and you write a slant poetry, seems perfect, but we haven't even introduced you. This is Christie Williamson here. You guys know Christie Williamson, who's a Glaswegian poet, originally from Shetland, family there, and we feel really fortunate to be here. We recommend everybody who comes to Glasgow to come to Locavore, and particularly to Tell It Slant books. And if anyone uses a favorite search engine to search Tell It Slant books Glasgow, the first thing that will come up with that search is the website for the store, which is at this point cash only, so you have to get here or contact Christie somehow and we'll mail you things. So Christie, thanks for joining us. We're also joined here by Sophia DuRose, Sophia, and Laynie Browne and Leanne Browne on a very special day for Leanne, which we won't say anything about anymore. It's just it makes us all happy that we're all here in Glasgow, Scotland. So we're going to talk about two poems that have a connection to each other. One poem is William Carlos Williams' poem, short poem, Nantucket. And the other poem is Christie's poem, written in Shetlandic, and it's called St. Catherine's. So I am going to read Nantucket by Williams, and we'll invite Christie to read St. Catherine's, and we'll talk about the two poems together. Nantucket. Flowers through the window, lavender and yellow, changed by white curtains, smell of cleanliness, sunshine of late afternoon. On the glass tray, a glass pitcher, the tumbler turned down, by which a key is lying, and the immaculate white bed.
So, that was beautiful, Al, thank you.
Thank you.
St. Catherine's. Coated optics, conservatory, the hills a clift, watch out. Down by the foot of the gallows hill, tak thy breath, awa.
Laynie Browne, would you read in the italic that's at the bottom of the page that
Sure.
Christie provides for us, which is a translation into English of the poem, which we must say was not, in a technical and spiritual sense, not written in English.
Sure. Coated optics, conservatory, the hills of Clift, watch out, down by the foot of the gallows hill, take your breath away.
People who like to watch films like this, where we sit around and do close readings, are probably guessing by now that we will talk about one poem and then the other. But I think what we should do is talk about the two poems together on impulse, back and forth. So, Sophia, start anywhere. What's your first observation about either or both?
Well, my first observation would be I'm trying to consider how optics operates in the St. Catherine's poem. Optics, what I think of is like the branch of physics that is about light. and the propagation of light and the changes it undergoes and produces. And I'm thinking about how optics is a great frame for how the words change in the translation. But in conversation with Nantucket, that also means how a place changes when you translate it into a form like imagism. That is what I'm thinking
already. And
So
so
good.
maybe I think we should just go around a few times.
Yeah.
And when it gets to you, my friend, you can either respond to what's been said or add a new point, since
Sure.
you're the one who thought of the optical relationship between the light in the two places. Nantucket, which Williams, he's not native to Nantucket, so he's visiting, and you are returning home to an island, and the light is going to be different for that. So you have a free pass.
Okay.
Laynie, other thoughts now?
Sure. I just want to build on what Sophia just said, starting with the first couplet in both poems. In the Williams poem, it's very visual. We have colors. We could be looking in a window or looking out a window when we've only read the first two lines.
Through the window. It may be
Through
that the
the
flowers are
window.
seen through the window.
But you could be standing outside looking, or you could be inside looking out at flowers outside. And in St. Catherine's, I read it as I'm in a new location, and that changes the way that I see because the landscape is different.
Nice. Leanne?
Well, I love what Sophia said about the optics, and I think of the word filter, and like a filter, like every poet's a different filter, that the experience of the poem is filtering through you to make another poem. So that the word filter also means a love poem, like a homonym to filter, like you fall in love with this poem, and so you write your own poem. It sets up a reverberation in you.
That's great. Leanne is speaking to the poems together as one a response to the other. I'm just going to go all the way in here. I didn't expect to in my first turn. But I keep thinking about Williams, and Williams cannot leave a scene alone. He is much too appetitious and desirous, and he's really not the ideal imagistic set piece maker, still life drawer in words. He's not really ideal because he can't help himself. He tries. But what we get here is a visited place that is spoken of as if the poet speaker knows it and knows that late afternoon slant of sun, really knows it, but then begins to observe the human intervention, the glass pitcher, a tumbler turned down. So a tumbler could be innocent. It could be, a water glass, right? But tumbler suggests that on this vacation they've been drinking and that they've cleaned up now. And the key suggests that they are leaving. Or it may be they're just going out for the afternoon and one leaves a key. But a key on a bed suggests we're done here, we've made the bed, we leave the key. Basically, it's weak renters. I'm really abstracting here. But the key in a bed suggests the desirous of Williams. It suggests that there's been intercourse. It suggests that
Tumbling.
Yes, and some tumbling. Hey, baby, tumble on the bed. And the immaculate white bed actually makes you think of the opposite, which is that at one point that bed was not immaculate, that it was messed. And this scene actually belies the tumbling that has occurred. And the parallel in Christie's take on a place is, this is a place I know in my bones, in my heart. I know this. Williams is doing the Williams thing of seeing as a visitor interloper. And Christie is rethinking it as home, as domestic, but not in the I leave the key sense. And there, the so much depends upon moment, which we get in the key in the first poem, is breathtaking away in the second, which is breathing bodily self. So I see I don't know if I would say correction, but a feeling of knowing this, that the first poem hints at, but then gives up. What do you want to do now? There's probably a lot you're thinking.
Yeah, there is. So, there's so St. Catherine's. St. Catherine's is when I wrote this, it was a place that we'd never been to. It's a house. It's my cousin's house. We've been back many times.
On which island? The main island, right?
And yeah, that's right. And
What's it called? What's the main island called?
the mainland.
The mainland.
Yeah, that's what we call it. And it confuses people who aren't from Shetland because they think this is the mainland, but it's not.
Shetland.
I mean, it is
Shetland, the island, is
Yeah.
not the mainland.
But the mainland is.
Got it. Anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah. So this was a place, a landscape that I know intimately and have a deep passion for, and like it's kind of definitional for me. But it's a completely new place. And on the way up, I'd been reading Nantucket over and over and over again because I was writing the essay for this amazing poetry course called Modpo.
You were writing an essay on Nantucket for Modpo.
Yeah.
We've really come home here.
And so the poem, like I don't think I hadn't written the essay, but I'd been reading the poem over and over and over again, and to get to Shetland, it takes a bit of doing, and so we'd arrived on the boat that morning, and then we'd been in at Mum and Dad's, and now the house was ready, and we went up, and never having seen it before, and walked through the hall, and there was, I mean, it isn't actually a conservatory, it's more of a sunroom because the roof isn't glass, right?
Conservatory technically has a glass roof
Yeah.
and glass walls for plants and sun.
Yeah, it doesn't have a glass roof, but it feels like a conservatory. And there was a pair of binoculars in the window. And on the binoculars, it had the words "coated optics" were printed on the.
Alan's verse, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
It's kind of a pun, I guess.
Yeah, it is, and I thought, well, the optics are coated for a conservatory purpose, and that kind of. Then I was caught in that moment of there I go, I'm writing a poem, and because I'd been because my conception of what a poem is has been so bound to Nantucket, then it has the formal similarities. So it's couplets, quite visual, I think.
Two quick follow-up questions, then we're back to a round. And Sophia, for the second round, I'm hoping that each of us will focus on word or phrase, the linguistic quality of the response to Williams, or in the Williams, a word or phrase. All right, first question is, you had been reading Nantucket for Modpo and thinking it and internalizing it. Then you got, not home technically, home in the general sense, Shetland, but new home, old kind of view, new view. And in responding, did you think of yourself as seeing differently or seeing similarly? That's the first question. And the second is, at some point you decided to write, so you do write English poems.
Yeah.
This is not one of them. So you made a choice to use Shetlandic for this.
Well,
So those are the two follow-up questions.
so yeah, I mean, it is I mean, every waking moment of your life, you see the same but different, don't you? You know, so it was like the view is exquisite. You should go. but I'd never seen it from there, and I'd never seen the house. So I was having that novelty of experience.
So you weren't unwriting Williams. You were not responding critically to Williams.
Not in a conscious, not on an intellectual level. It wasn't like I was there and I thought, the Williams poem, this view that I'm gonna consciously put them both together. The Williams poem had almost become embodied in me, and then this poem is a response to the view from St. Catherine's and arriving in St. Catherine's, and it came out very like this poem that I'd spent loads and loads of time and effort trying to get inside.
And the choice of language, you felt very Shetlandic at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know that I really viewed it or even view it as a choice. That's just how it came out.
Well, Williams being famous for his decision to write in American English at a time when even modernists in the U.S. were thinking about Anglo-American English.
It is interesting because quoted optics.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the relationship with Williams, relationship with Williams to English is very antagonistic. The relationship of a Scottish poet from the Shetland is similarly vexed with its relationship to English.
For sure, definitely, and interestingly, the past few weeks, knowing that we've been doing this, I've before I looked, I couldn't remember if it was in English or in Shetlandic.
Interesting.
And because the first stanza are all English words.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Another round. This time, word or phrase, and take us further with that word or phrase.
Okay. I was tempted to pick lying, like he is lying, but I think I'm gonna continue talking about the conservatory because I like this. The glass tray and the glass pitcher that appears in Nantucket, and the conservatory, which is typically made of glass, and St. Catherine's. And I'm thinking about what we can't see even when we're looking at something. So we can't see the supposed guests in Nantucket. We don't know who they are. We just know there was a presence. And in St. Catherine's, we can't see those who were hanged or whatnot. But there's a different valence of knowledge in St. Catherine's as opposed to Nantucket. And
oh my gosh, you're conjuring the disappeared in both poems, which is very much.
Even though they're talking about
surface.
Transparency, they both deal with transparency.
You are so smart. Can we just stipulate how smart
conservatory,
you are?
I think of conserving, right? What are we keeping? Poetry is an act of collection. How do you collect something that's not there anymore? You write about it?
You make a presence out of an absence in the writing. Wow. Okay. Laynie, how are you going to follow that?
I'm going to go to the end of the poem and talk about the last stanza. So the key, the immaculate bed, and the breath being stolen. And I'm reading both poems as this is a moment of arrival, not departure. So it's a late afternoon.
The second one, certainly.
I read the first one as arrival as well. You get to the room, you're checking in, it's a late afternoon, it's perfect. The key is on the bed, literally to your room. The bed is perfectly made. You can do whatever you want. So the key is some kind of a promise, arrival at this interior that's made space for you. And in St. Catherine's, the arrival is at looking at this really dramatic sea cliff, which takes your breath away.
Wonderful. Leanne, thank you for the alternative reading about the relationship between arriving in time as opposed to departure in time. They are both arriving poems. We know that St. Catherine certainly is. because we have the autobiography over here. If we had Williams with us, this would be fun.
The point of the poem I'm going to go with is the key, because the key to both poems, I think, is this, what you said, it was same but different, when it's that estrangement principle, the astronini, like when you see something new for the first time and you're taken aback and you inhale, it's an inhalation, like that, there's this, each everyday object becomes charged. Like in the Williams poem, it's just the objects and they have this vibration around them, and you're having that same experience, but you don't have the objects so clearly like that. But you're describing the experience, you're conjuring the experience, and it has to do with life and death. It has to do with inhalation and taking your breath away, but also that means death too, like taking your breath away, dying. So it's like totally this very cosmic, intense moment of recognition of being alive. It's like this estrangement that happens when you are sort of in the everyday, but everything looks new. Like I always say, like the first day of school and everything is really weird and you're like all excited. But it's an even more beautiful place. But I have to say one thing about that key is that I immediately thought of Ginsberg's Key in the Window in Kaddish when it's this everyday object that Naomi says, don't take drugs, there's a key in the window, and he's like seeing this weird vibratory thing, But, of course, Ginsberg loved Williams. Probably that made it vibrate more for him, that his mother said to think about the key, that's sort of
If
extra
Naomi
beautiful,
said,
but
well, think about the key, there's going to be fear and dread in Alan,
Yes.
the son. There's some, I don't know about fear, but there's dread underneath these seemingly pristine scenes.
There's a break. There's some estrangement,
Wow.
either positive or negative, but like weird, it's a weird thing of everyday object,
Wow, I love that observation, Liam. That's amazing. I guess I will focus on watch out. Out.
Yeah.
Watch out. So it's technically looking out. Binoculars. We arrive and we look at the scene. But at least in English, watch out is a warning. There's dread there as well. And now it may be that if you watch a cliff, you have to be very careful, because those who watch a scene of sheer drop are also more likely to fall than if you're not watching, right? Watch out. Get to the edge of something. It seems to me that is saying that with every optical experience there's a danger of loss, absence. We've been talking about it. I really think the key, I'm gonna press my reading against the arrival. If you arrive in Nantucket, the key, it's possible that your room is unlocked and the key for your room is on the bed already. But it seems more likely that you're leaving the key. I'm being a little technical about visiting Nantucket, but it seems to me that the Immaculate White Bed has been left, and underneath that is the experience, not of transparency. St. Catherine's is an anti-transparency poem because it's coded optics. Flowers through the window, lavender and yellow, are changed by anything through which you see them, the white curtains. In this case, the watching out, which gets you to watch a hill that's named for its gallows. There's all kinds of ominous suggestions about seeing through coded optics in both poems. Both poems resist the poetics of transparency, even though they're both pristine. Yeah. Wow. We're really reading deeply into you. Are you full of dread?
Always.
Always, exactly. I mean, I think that both poems are ominous, actually.
Can I respond to that?
Please, yeah.
Because I feel like I agree with all the layers, but I read the death and the dread a little differently. I read it as if it's a moment of arrival and a moment of seeing a cliff, then if you're given a key and a bed and a room, and it's like saying life and death are before you, what are you going to do? That's gravity. It's like, this is a moment of your life. What are you going to do in this room? Who are you going to do it with? Or are you going to leave it because you're too afraid and you're going to do nothing? What will you do? And when you look at the cliff, are you going to jump off of it? Or are you going to look at the beauty? So it's kind of like about the choice that we have and the gravity of kind of like what Leanne was saying about the moment when something is new and you realize, this is my moment. This is the weekend of my life. This is the time I have, and what do I want to do with it? Which can be, it's very awe-inspiring.
I think the poetry of lightness, which you appreciated in Williams, and you are a poet of lightness, you are a poet of light, is always asking what can we do against the darkness that surrounds us? And the answer to that is, drive. Look out, watch where you're going, right? And I think so. That's why I see the
Mess up the bit.
yeah. I really see this as like I am always talking because I'm a poet, and what you're saying to yourself is drive. Do the looking, and let your reader figure out what's wrong, what's lying behind the surface of that light. You are invited to respond in any way, and then we're going to quickly go around for final thoughts. Say whatever you like. How are you feeling?
Great.
Are you feeling overread?
No, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, like as a poet, you spend a lot of time and to have somebody else do that as well is I mean probably more. We'd probably spend more time talking about
Then
this
you
poem
took to write it.
Yeah.
Isn't that always
Right,
the case?
yeah.
It would have been great. I mean, as much as we love Glasgow, thank you for having us here. It would have been great to be up there at the mainland.
doing this.
Drive.
Yeah.
You can't drive there. That's the problem. What?
Both.
We need a boat.
A
Modpo boat.
Yeah.
We need a boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mod boat.
Next year in Shetland.
Chris and Zach will drive a boat.
Anyway, please, you've got the floor.
So, just a couple of things to clear up. So the hills of Clift, they're not actually they're steep hills, but they're not cliffs per se. But they do kind of. They're very steep and they have the sea at the bottom, so they're a bit like cliffs. I don't know why it's called Clift, but I don't think it is because they're like cliffs. And there is family loss associated with the hills of Clift.
Family laws? What does that mean?
Like a cousin of mine lived in Burra, which is the island across Cliftsend from the hills of Clift. I'm going to show you photos, right?
Yeah.
But he went missing and then he was found in the sea in Cliftsend. So that was kind of like whenever I see Cliff.
I looked at the pictures and I thought it was very dramatic and beautiful.
Thus, you find the pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thus affirming the ominous reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Watch out! You're telling yourself to watch out.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm watching out, and the hills are watching back. That's spooky. But there is they do have a kind of sense the land. Like I get a sense in Shetland that the landscape is watching.
There's a pun on fit that is metapoetic. Of course, it's foot. This is a poem that's very aware of its meter. And fit is also the thing that you might trip on if you're not careful. There's a lot of footing going on.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I would add is the last verse. It's the kind you would definitely I would hardly ever feel like I could write that in a poem, take your breath away. It's too, you know, it's too like
On the nose.
hallmark, you know.
Too hallmark, yeah.
Yeah.
But it works.
But it does. It works. I think. I mean,
And you're all, with all due respect to the thousands and thousands of Shetlandic readers, the fact is you're writing for an English readership here in Scotland and elsewhere, and so it can't be hallmarky because we have to take that pronoun your and make it die. We have to work to get this hallmark moment.
but it is also because of the line break means so it offers so like tactile breath is like if you've been on like a long hectic trip
Right,
and
take
you
your
stop
breath. Take a breath.
Yeah.
and you take your breath
Right.
and if you're a war then that means you're not in your day-to-day environment, so it's kind of bittersweet at the end there because I'm
great.
home and I'm away.
Oh, wow.
You learn the line break, you learned it on your own, but you also picked it up for Williams, who was very focused on how a wa would be separate. All right, final thoughts, quick ones. Sophia?
Okay.
Well, no, it doesn't have to be quick.
I think I'm still parsing through the decision to have the English translation as like 2 long lines, as opposed to the poem that looks like a cliff. Like you fall down it pretty quick, right? You kind of just tumble down through the lines. But
Tumbling has been brought over from the other poem.
yeah, but the English translation, it's like I need to take a big breath and get it all out because the slashes don't really stop me the way that line breaks do. Like I don't hit things on my way down. I need to inhale and read it quickly. And I feel like that reading experience just enhanced. Like I appreciate having both. I like reading it both ways.
Do you hesitate about translation? Because this is one that we probably could piece together as English readers.
So I mean, I have 2 collections of poetry. They both have more Shetlandic poetry than English poetry, and they both have both. In my first collection, I did a glossary at the back of the book, and it's a lot of work. and so the second collection, which this is from, I did English translations. I think like partly out of laziness, but also like I feel like it's more accessible for an English readership. Although I must admit, when I sent the manuscript, I'd done them in like a really small point in grey ink because I was like, I'll make it easy for you, but I'm not going to make it that easy.
I love that.
But that's really interesting to hear the experiential difference. Thank you.
Laynie, final thought?
Final thought is that I read both poems as an invitation to kind of pause, to pick up the key, to look at the landscape, looking back, and just assess all of it, the whole human reality, which is the dread and the ominousness, but also the invitation of what do you want to do right now.
Leanne Brown?
Well, I'm going to focus on the word die that we were just talking about because it reminds me also of not only your, but like thy, like the word thy and thee and they, and how everybody was saying, what, when people are using they as a gender non-binary pronoun, people are like, that's new, I don't understand that, but like we really think of the old ways, and thy and die is even older. Like this is oldness in the language of using they, of that word, there's these other roots that are here.
My final thought is a meta thought.
Of course.
We have, meta is of course, but meta is...
Of course.
Of course. We have made literally hundreds, probably verging on 1,000 filmed discussions of poems. This is the very first time that we are talking, especially on location here, Glasgow, Scotland. We are talking about a poem that was written in response to Modpo, and I'm just proud. I don't think you joined literally the first year, but the second or third, and here you were diligently investigating U.S. modern and contemporary poetry. And as a contemporary poet, obviously you're here, as a contemporary poet, you're responding to the putting out there. And in the first couple of years, we had a lot of Scottish participants, lots and lots, more Edinburgh than Glasgow. But this affirms the various Englishes that are always implicit in, and Williams, of course, is the, I don't know if champion is the right word, but someone who obsessed with Americanizing English as a resistance to English as opposed to UK English. And I just feel like a beautiful circle has been drawn around the observation of the way light slants, telling it slant. Especially now that coded optics are a requirement when you are in a place where in summer the sun is going to be your entire life, except for maybe 2 or 3 hours in the evening. And I think that Nantucket has that special remoteness that you can't quite get if you're from New Jersey, except to go up to some remote island, off the coast of Massachusetts. And I just love the connection that has been made through this global English. I think global English is the English of Modpo, and it just affirms that. So I'm celebrating us, I think. Now you get a final thought.
now I get to follow that.
You can just say how happy you are, and you can move on.
Yeah. No, I mean it's but yeah, it's a really beautiful. The Williams poem was really helped me to understand what poetry can do. And every time you read a poem, you understand what poetry can do a little better. And if you read it in very good company, then you understand even more.
Well, can we end this conversation by asking you to reread St. Catherine's for us?
If you, I mean, I'd be delighted to.
Okay,
yeah.
Please.
St. Catherine's. Coated optics, conservatory. The hills o' Clift, watch out. Down by the foot of the gallows hill, tak thy breath awa.
And we are awa ourselves, Sophia, Laynie. We are awa. Leanne, happy Leanne. And Christie Williamson, thank you so much.
Thank you.